Well, hey, how you doing today? How are you? Are you fine? Are you okay? How's it going? Are you having a good day, bad day, sad day? I hope it's a good day. Welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina, K-R-S-T-I-N-A. This is where I read books, talk books, love books, enjoy books. This came my way, and I was like, we've been doing these out of order, and I usually pride myself on doing books in order. But this popped up today, and I'm like, we've had some fun with this, and if I can find the clip art, the clip video that I did, um then I will attach it to the end of this video like I did the last one, if I can find it. So wish me luck that I can find the pictures of the entire series. But this is where it began. This is the very first one, and it came my way. I prefer hardcover, but this came my way. It's paperback, and it's still got the. I think it's a Barnes. It might be a Walden's. I'm not exactly sure. $7.50. I think this costs a lot more today. But here we go. Clan of the Cave Bear, the very first Anya book. This novel of awesome beauty and power is a moving saga about people, relationships, and the boundaries of love. Through Jean M. AUEL's magnificent storytelling, we are taken back to the dawn of modern humans with a girl named Alia, A-Y-L-A. We are swept up in the harsh and beautiful ice age would they share with the ones who called themselves the Clan of the Cave Bear. A natural disaster leaves a young girl wandering alone in an unfamiliar and dangerous land until she is found by the woman of the clan. People very different from her own, to whom blonde, blue-eyed Alia looks particular and ugly, and is one of the others, those who have moved into the ancient homeland. But Izza cannot leave the girl to die and takes her home. Shall we read the first chapter? Shall we read? I just the beginning, the origins. The naked child ran out of the hide-covered lane toward the rocky beach at the bend in the small river. It didn't occur to her to look back. Nothing in her experience ever gave her reason to doubt the shelter and those within would be there when she returned. She splashed into the river and felt rocks and sand shift under her feet as the shore fell off sharply. She dived into the cold water and came up sputtering, then reached out with sure strokes for the steep opposite bank. She had learned to swim before she learned to walk, and at 5 was at ease in the water. Swimming was often the only way a river could be crossed. The girl played for a while, swimming back and forth, then let the current float her downstream, where the river widened and bubbled over the rocks. She stood up and waded ashore, then walked back to the beach and began sorting pebbles. She had just put a stone on top of a pile of especially pretty ones when the earth began to tremble. The child looked up with surprise as the stone rolled down of its own accord, and stared in wonder at the small pyramid of pebbles shaking and leveling themselves. Only then did she become aware that she was shaking too. But she was still more confused than apprehensive. She glanced around, trying to understand why her universe had altered in some inexplicable way. The earth was not supposed to move. The small river, which moments before had flowed smoothly, was rolling with choppy waves that splashed over its banks as the rocking stream moved at cross purposes to the current, dredging up mud from the bottom. Brush close by the upstream banks quivered, animated by unseen movements at the roots, and downstream boulders bobbed in accustomed agitation. Beyond them, stately conifers of the forest in which the stream flowed grotesquely. A giant pine near the bank, its roots exposed and their hold weakened by the spring runoff, leaned toward the opposite shore. With a crack, it gave way and crashed to the ground. Bridging the turbid watercourse lay shaking on the unsteady earth. The girl stared at the sound of the falling tree. Her stomach longer. Wait a minute. I must have skipped. Her stomach churned and tightened into a knot as she feared the edge of her mind. She tried to stand back but fell, unbalanced by the sickening swaying. She tried again, managed to pull herself up, and stood unsteadily, afraid to take a step. As she started toward the hide-covered shelter set back from the stream, she felt a low rumble rise to a terrifying roar. A sour stench of wetness and rot issued from the crack opening on the ground, like a reek of morning breath from a yawning earth. She stared uncomprehendingly at dirt and rocks and small trees falling into the widening gap as the cooled shell of the molten planet cracked in convulsion. I do not know who had this book before me, but they highlight. It's a little distracting, all this highlighting. So that's your first chapter. A couple of pages of your first chapter. The second chapter, the band of travelers crossed the river just beyond the waterfall where it widened and foamed around rocks jutting up through the shallow water. They were 20 in number, young and old. The clan had totaled 26 before the earthquake that destroyed their cave. Two men led the way far in front of a knot of women and children, flanked by a couple of older men. Younger men trailed behind. They followed the broad stream as it began its braided, meandering across the flat steps and watched the carrion birds circling. Flying scavengers usually meant that whatever had attracted their attention was still alive. Smoke! What are you screaming at? Smoke! Come here, Smoke. A woman midway along in her first pregnancy walked in front of the rest of the women. She saw the two men in the lead glance at the ground and move on. It must be a meat eater, she thought. The clan seldom ate cavernous animals. Come here. Smoke. Come here. Come here. Come here. I'm gonna sneeze. She was just 4.5 feet tall, large boned, stocky, bow legged, but walked upright on strong, muscular legs and flat, bare feet. Her arms, long in proportion to her body, were bowed like her legs. She had a large, beaky nose. A protagonist, I have no idea. Yes, ma'am. Come here. Come here. You gonna read the book with me? You wanna read with me? We can read together. You wanna read with me? Mommy's nose is gonna explode in a minute. Come here. What? What? Do you have this happen? Are you reading a really good book? Do you have your child interrupt you? Excuse me a minute. Oh, book is dusty. Okay, Miss Smokey. Where was we? The woman was old for her first pregnancy, nearly 20, and the clan thought she was barren until the life stirring within her started to show. The load she carried had not been lightened because she was pregnant, however. She had a large basket strapped on her back with bundles tied behind, hanging below, and piled on top. Smoke! We gone. Several drawstring bags dangled from a thong, which was wrapped around the pliable hide she wore in such a way as to produce folds and pouches for carrying things. One bag was particularly distinctive. It was made from outer hide. Obviously so, it had been curved with its waterproof fur, feet, tail, and head still left intact. Rather than slit in the skin of an animal's belly, only the throat had been cut to provide an opening to remove the innards, flesh, and bones, leaving a pouch-like bag. Ew. Izza, come, he commanded. Cave lines, tracks, and scat ahead. It's a child, Brune, hurt, not dead. Not Clan, he said. Brune, she's a child, she's hurt, she'll die if we leave her here. Izza's eyes pleaded as she made the hand signals. The leader of the clan stared down at the imploring woman. He was much bigger than she, over 5 feet tall, heavily muscled and powerful, with deep barrel chest and bowed legs. The cast of his features was similar, though more pronounced, heavier superforal, ridger, larger nose. His legs, stomach, chest, and upper back were covered with coarse brown hair that was not enough to be called a pelt, but not far from it. A bushy beard hid his chinless jutting jaw. His wrap was similar too, but not as full, cut shorter and tied differently with fewer folds and pouches for holding things. He shifted his club, the long foreleg of a horse, with his shoulder to the ground, supporting the handle with his thigh, and Izen knew he was giving her plea serious consideration. She waited quietly, hiding her agitation to give him time to think. Brian didn't like making quick decisions about anything unusual that might affect his clan, especially now that they were homeless, and he resisted the impulse to refuse at once. I should have known Izza want to help her, he thought. She even used her healing magic on animals sometimes, especially young ones. She'll be upset if I don't let her help this child, clan or others. It makes no difference. All she can see is a child who is hurt. That's right. Regardless of race, creed, color, or anything, you always help a child. And if anybody wants to give me a child, I'll take one. God took all 5 of mine, and I get jealous when I see people with 5 and 6 and 7 kids, and I'm like, you wouldn't even give me one. God had to take them all. Let her take the child, he thought. She'll soon get tired of carrying the extra load, and the girl is so far gone. Not even my siblings' magic may be strong enough to save her. Brune tucked his sling back in his waist thong, picked up the weapons, and shrugged noncommittally. It was up to Izza. Take the girl with them or not as she pleased. He strode off. So that's how Alia came into being. That's how she came. That's how it all started. When they started out again, a third woman picked up a young boy, supporting him on her hip with a leather carrying cloak. After a few moments, he squirmed to get down and run by himself. She let him go, knowing he would be back when he got tired again. An older girl, not yet a woman, but carrying a woman's load, walked behind the woman who followed Izza, glancing back now and then at a boy, very nearly a man, trailing the woman. He tried to allow enough distance between himself and them, so it would seem he was one of the 3 hunters bringing up the rear, and not one of the children. He wished he had game to carry too, and envied the old man. One of the 2 flanking the women, who carried a large hair over his shoulder, fell by stone from his sling. Izza, he questioned with a gesture toward the child she carried. The woman opened her cloak, and Kreb looked closely at the small flesh face. His eye traveled down the swollen leg and spurting wound, then back to the medicine woman, and reading meaning from her eyes. The child moaned, and Caleb's expression softened. He nodded his approval. Good. Enough have died. Krebs stayed behind Izza. He didn't have to conform to the understood rules that defined each person's position and status. He could walk with anyone, including the leader if he chose. Mogur was above and aside from the strict hierarchy of the clan. Brune led them well beyond the spoor of cave lines before he stopped and studied the landscape. Across the river, as far as he could see, the prairie stretched out in low rolling hills and a flat green expanse in the distance. His view was unobstructed. The few stunted trees, distorted by the constant wind into caricatures of arrested motion, merely put the open country in perspective and emphasized the emptiness. Don't you wish it was like that now sometimes? And let's see. That's a long chapter. Chapter 3. The child turned over and began to thresh. Mother, she moaned, flapping her arms wildly. She called out again, Mother. Isa held her, mourning a soft, rumbling undertone. The warm closeness of the woman's body and her soothing sounds penetrated the child's feverish brain and quieted her. She slept fitfully through the night, awakening the woman often with her tossing and moaning and delirious mutterings. It was still dark, though dawn was approaching, when the child's fever finally broke in the drenching sweat. Isa cuddled her close, adding her warmth and making sure she was well covered. The girl woke shortly afterward and wondered where she was, but it was too dark to see. She felt the reassurance of the woman's body next to her and closed her eyes again and drifted into more restless sleep. The little girl lay perfectly still, afraid to move a muscle, her eyes wide open. When the child sat up with Isa's help, she winced in pain from the movement, and her memories came flooding back. She recalled the monstrous line with a shudder, visualizing the sharp claw raking her leg. She remembered struggling to the stream, thirst overcoming her fear and the pain in her leg. But she remembered nothing before. Her mind had blacked out all memory of her ordeal, wandering alone, hungry and lost, and the terrifying earthquake and the loved ones she had lost. He said, pointing to himself, Isa watching quietly, waiting for the flowers to steep. She was glad Kreb was taking an interest in the girl, and the use of his personal name was not lost on her. Kreb, he repeated, pointing to his chest. The child cocked her head, trying to understand. There was something he wanted her to do. Kreb said his name a third time. Suddenly she brightened, sat up, and smiled. Crab, she responded, rolling the R to mimic the sound. The old man nodded her approval. Her pronunciation was close. Then he pointed at her. She frowned slightly, not quite sure what he wanted. He tapped his chest, repeated the name, then he tapped hers. Then a wide smile of understanding looked like a grimace to him, and the polysyllabic word that rolled out of her mouth was not only unpronounceable, it was incomprehensible. He went through the motions alone, leaning close to her, hear her better. She said her name. Ayla. Ayla, Kreb repeated, getting used to the sound. Kreb, tugging at his arm to get his attention, then pointed at the woman. Isa. Isa, she repeated. She was delighted with the word game. Isa, she reiterated, looking at a woman. Isa nodded solemnly. Name sounds were important. She leaned forward and tapped the girl's chest the way Caleb did, wanting her to say her name word again. The girl repeated her full name, but Isa shook her head. She couldn't begin to make the combination of sounds that the girl made so easily. The child was dismayed, then glanced at Kreb and said her name the way he had. Aya. Ayla. Ayla, the woman said carefully, struggling to make the word the way Kreb had. The girl smiled. It didn't matter that the name wasn't exactly right. Isa had tried so hard to say the name Kreb had given her. She accepted it as her own. She would be Ayla for them. Spontaneously, she reached out and hugged the woman. Rune turned on his heel and strode towards the edge. As he rounded the jutting nose, he stopped. Held by the sight beyond, excitement surged through his veins. A cave! What a cave! From the first instant he saw, he knew it was the cave he was looking for. But he fought to control his emotions, to keep his growing hopes in check. With conscious efforts, he focused on the details of the cave and its setting, his concentration so intense he hardly noticed the girl. So they find the cave in chapter 4. That girl, the one Izza picked up, you know she's not Clan Mogar. Brun started a little unsure of how to begin. Kreb waited. You were the one who said I should allow Ursa to decide if she should live. Well, it looks like he has. But what do we do with her now? She's not clan. She has no totem. Our totems won't even allow someone from another clan at the ceremony to make a cave ready for them. Only those whose spirits will live in it are permitted. She's so young, she'd never survive alone, and you know Izza wants to keep her. But what about the cave ceremony? Kreb had been hoping for just such an opening. He was prepared. The child has a totem, Brun, a strong totem. We just don't know what it is. She was attacked by a cave lion, yet all she has to show for it are a few scratches. A cave lion? Few hunters would get away that easy. Yes, and she wandered alone for a long time. She was near starvation, yet she didn't die. She was put in our path for Izza to find, and don't forget, you didn't prevent it, Bron. She is young for such an ordeal. Morgur continued, but I think she was being tested by her totem to see if she is worthy. Her totem is not only strong, it's lucky. We should all share her luck. Maybe we already have. You mean the caves? It was shown to her first. We were ready to turn back. You led us close, Broom. The spirits led me, Mogor. They wanted a new home. Of course they led you, but still. They showed the cave to the girl first. I've been thinking, Brom. There are two babies who don't know where their totems are. I haven't had time. Finding a new cave was more important. I think we should include a totem ceremony for those babies when we sanctify the cave. It would bring them luck and please their mothers. What does this have to do with the girl? When I meditate for the totems of the two babies, I will ask for hers too. If her totem reveals himself to me, she can be included in the ceremony. It wouldn't require much of her, and we can accept her into the clan at the same time. Then there won't be any problem with her staying. She can stay, she can stay, she can stay, she can stay. Am I getting a little too carried away? Alright, this is getting a little long in the duel. And, you know me, my internet speed is a 1 or 2 in the upload. I'm paying for 10, but my actual speed is a 1 or 2. And don't forget to check out Star Trek Next Generations on Fridays and my If Thens on Fridays and Flashback Monday, where we talk about all the books in my favorite magazine. And shall we do one more chapter before we end it? A chapter in the beginning or a chapter in the end? Which way should we go? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's see. Ah, Chapter 9. This will be our last one. The spirit of light, dry snow, took the spirit of granular snow as his mate, and after a time she gave birth to the mountain of ice far to the north. The sun spirit hated the glittering child spreading across the land as he grew, keeping away his warmth so no grass would grow. The sun decided to destroy Ice Mountain, but Storm Cloud Spirit, the sibling of Granular Snow, found out the sun wanted to kill her child. In the summer, when the sun was most powerful, Storm Cloud Spirit fought with him to save Ice Mountain's life. On some days the sun won the battle and beat down on the hard, cold ice, turning it into water, draining Ice Mountain's life away. But many days Storm Cloud won, covering the face of the sun, keeping his heat from melting the ice too much. Though Ice Mountain starved and shrunk in summer, in winter his mother took the nourishment her mate brought and nursed her son back to health. Every summer the sun struggled to destroy Ice Mountain, but Storm Child kept the sun from melting all that mother had fed her child during the winter before. At the beginning of each new winter, Ice Mountain was always a little bigger than he'd been the winter before. He grew, spread further, covered more land every year. The wind whistling through the bare-limbed trees outside the cave added sound effects to the story, sending a sympathetic shiver of excitement down AUEL's spine. The clan didn't know what to do. Why are the spirits of our totems no longer protecting us? What have we done to make them angry with us? The Mogre decided to go off by himself to find the spirit and talk to them. He'd been gone a long time. Many people became restless waiting for the Mogre to return, especially the younger ones. But Dirk was more impatient than anyone. The Mogre will never come back, he said. Our totems don't like the cold. They have gone away. We should leave too. Our totems have already left, Dirk said. If we can find a better home, they may come back. We can go to the south, following the birds that flee from the cold in autumn, and to the east to the final land of the sun. We can go where Ice Mountain cannot reach us. Ice Mountain moves slowly. We can run like the wind. He would never catch us. If we stay here, we will freeze. Then one day the clan saw a strange animal approaching, an animal who was not afraid of the fire. The people were frightened and stared in wonder. They had never seen such an animal before. But when it came closer, they saw it wasn't an animal at all. It was the Mogre. He was covered with the fur of a cave bear. He told the clan what he had learned from Ursus, the spirit of the great cave bear. Ursus taught the people to live in caves, to wear the fur of animals, to hunt and gather in the summer, and save food for winter. The people of the clan always remembered what Ursus taught them, and the Ice Mountain tried. He could not drive the people from their home. No matter how much cold and snow ice sent before him, the people would not move. They would not get out of his way. Finally, Ice Mountain gave up. He sulked and wouldn't fight the sun anymore. Storm Cloud became angry because Ice Mountain would not fight and refused to help him anymore. Ice Mountain left the land and went back to his home in the north. And the great cold left him. The sun exulted at his victory and chased all the way to his northern home. There was no place he could hide from the great heat, and he was defeated. For many, many years there was no winter, only long days of summer. But Grandula Snow grieved for her lost child, and the grief made her weak. Light, dry Snow wanted her to have another son and asked Storm Cloud Spirit for help. Storm Cloud felt pity for his sibling, and he helped Light, dry Snow to bring her nourishment to make her strong. He covered the face of the sun again while Light, dry Snow hovered near, sprinkling his spirit for Granular Snow to swallow. He gave birth to another Ice Mountain, but the people remembered Ursus taught them. Ice Mountain will never drive the clan from their home. Plan of the Cave Bear, the first one, the origins of AUEL. I wish you enjoyment in all of your readings, and I hope you have a good day. Have a good one, and stay tuned for the montage if I can find it. Fingers crossed. Have a good one.